The situation is beyond containment. The void cascade has already consumed 3-star systems, and our predictive models give us less than 60 rotations before it reaches the core worlds. Admiral Zorn's tentacles trembled as he delivered the news to the gathered Galactic Council. I stood in the corner, recording everything as was my duty as diplomatic liaison vexillor of the myriad consciousness. After 16 stellar cycles in service to the Council, I'd never seen the chamber this tense. Representatives from 17 advanced civilizations, species that had mastered faster-than-light travel, consciousness uploading, and even limited-time manipulation, all looked utterly defeated. The Thraxi containment field failed, asked Councillor Peltaz, her crystalline form dimming in obvious distress. Failed implies it had a chance, snorted Commander Brill, the massive Targonian war strategist. The void cascade simply ignored it. Like our most advanced technology was nothing more than a child's drawing of a fortress. Grand Architect Mool 7, whose species had built the Dyson spheres that powered half the galaxy, extended his probability limbs in resignation. We've tried everything: temporal reversal, quantum disruption barriers, even the forbidden mass energy conversion protocols. Silence fell over the chamber. Those were indeed everything. The sum total of the most advanced defensive technologies 17 Type 3 civilizations could deploy. Everything except one option, came a quiet voice from the back of the chamber. All ocular appendages turned toward Elder Enks, the oldest member of the Council and keeper of the Forbidden Archives. The ancient being rarely spoke, and never without good reason. Elder Enks, please tell me you're not suggesting what I fear you are, Grand Architect Mool 7 said. The ancient being's skin pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that translated roughly to extreme reluctance. The void cascade operates on principles that defy our understanding of physics. Our logical, methodical approaches have failed precisely because they are logical and methodical. We need chaos to fight chaos, whispered Ambassador Krill, suddenly understanding. Elder Enks's light patterns intensified. We need the species that turned chaos into an art form. The species that thrives on the impossible. The species that finds solutions where we see only problems. Admiral Zorn's tentacles coiled tightly against his torso, a sign of extreme stress in his species. The quarantine has held for 3,000 years, for good reason. What species is this? I asked, unable to contain my curiosity. In all my years cataloging galactic knowledge, I'd never heard of a quarantine species with such a reputation. Elder Enks turned to me, light patterns now pulsing in what I recognized as the rhythm of ancient fear. They call themselves humans. They come from a small, unremarkable planet they named Earth. The chamber erupted in alarmed vocalizations. Several counselors actually disconnected their translation modules, as if the mere discussion might somehow summon these creatures. The humans are more dangerous than the void cascade, shouted Commander Brill. At least the cascade is predictable in its destruction. Humans are our last option, Elder Enks finished, and possibly our only hope. The council chamber fell silent again, but this was a different kind of silence, the heavy quiet of beings confronting the unthinkable. I've studied the ancient records, Elder Enks continued. Humans possess something none of our species truly understand. They call it ingenuity, but it's more than that. It's their complete disregard for established limitations. Where we see immutable laws of physics, they see suggestions. Grand Architect Mool 7's probability limbs twisted into a shape I'd never seen before. The records also show they nearly destroyed their own planet, multiple times, for trivial reasons, and yet they survived, Elder Enks replied. Each time through solutions no sane species would even consider, which is precisely why we need them now. Admiral Zorn's voice dropped to a whisper. The quarantine protocols are clear. Contact is forbidden without unanimous council approval. Elder Enks's bioluminescence dimmed to almost nothing. Then I call for a vote, all in favor of breaching the human quarantine to seek their assistance with the void cascade. Extend your decision appendage. One by one, with obvious reluctance, each council member signaled agreement. Some used tentacles, others used light signals or electromagnetic pulses. The vote was unanimous. Diplomatic liaison vexillor, Elder Enks addressed me directly. Prepare a first contact team. You will accompany Ambassador Krill to the human quarantine zone. And just like that, my comfortable job recording galactic history became a mission to contact the one species so unpredictable, so terrifying, that even the gods of the galaxy had locked them away and thrown away the key. The quarantine around Earth was about to be broken. The journey to the quarantine zone gave me ample time to study the restricted files on humanity. Ambassador Krill insisted I understand exactly what we were dealing with. and granted me temporary access to the Forbidden Archive's human database. What I learned turned my exoskeleton cold. This can't possibly be accurate, I said, my data tendrils recoiling from the information stream. No sentient species could be this contradictory and still achieve spaceflight. Ambassador Krill made the whistling sound her species used to indicate grim amusement. Every new liaison says the same thing, but I assure you, the records are meticulously accurate. I scanned the highlights again in disbelief. Humans discovered nuclear fission and immediately used it to obliterate their own cities before later using the same technology to create medical treatments. Humans created global computer networks primarily to share pictures of juvenile felines and engage in tribal arguments with strangers. Humans routinely jumped from great heights with nothing but fabric to slow their descent, for entertainment. But why were they quarantined? I asked, still processing the contradictions. Dangerous to themselves is one thing, but dangerous to the galaxy. Ambassador Krill's epidermis darkened to the deep purple of serious concern. Because of the Proxima incident, she activated a classified historical record that few beings in the galaxy had clearance to view. The holographic display showed a small outpost on a rusty red planet in a binary star system. 3,000 years ago, the Galactic Council established first contact with humans. We were impressed by their rapid technological advancement despite their planetary limitations. We offered them membership in the Council and shared some basic faster-than-light principles as a gesture of goodwill. The hologram shifted to show human engineers studying the alien technology. We expected them to spend decades reverse engineering the concepts, Krill continued. The Juxari took 73 years to understand the principles we shared, and they were considerably more advanced than humans at first contact. How long did the humans take? I asked, already suspecting the answer wouldn't be comforting. 17 days. My sensory appendages twitched in shock. That's not possible. Not only did they understand the principles, Krill continued, ignoring my disbelief, they improved upon them. The human engineers said our designs were, and I quote, unnecessarily complicated, and obviously never field-tested. The hologram now showed human ships with modified FTL drives. Within a month, they had built a fleet using salvaged materials from their own primitive spacecraft. When the Council expressed concern about the speed of development, the humans misinterpreted it as a challenge. They thought we were racing them. Racing them? To what end? That's just it, Krill said, her membranes fluttering in distress. Humans don't always need an end. Sometimes they do things simply because they can, because someone said they couldn't. Or worst of all, because they were bored. The hologram shifted again to show a massive explosion engulfing an entire moon. My data tendrils recoiled instinctively. What happened? I whispered. The humans decided to test their improved FTL drive by racing from their planet to Proxima Centauri, something they'd calculated would take just under 3 days. When the drive's containment field failed during acceleration, the resulting dimensional rupture destroyed Proxima's fifth moon and created a spatial anomaly that took 17 Council species working together over a century to repair, and the humans apologized, said they'd made a slight miscalculation. Then immediately began drawing up plans for an improved containment field that they were pretty sure would prevent future moon-destroying incidents. I stared at the data in disbelief. And that's when the quarantine was implemented. Yes, the Council took a vote, and the decision was unanimous. Humanity was too unpredictable, too reckless. Give them advanced technology, and they'd either destroy themselves or us, either through malice or sheer unbridled curiosity. Ambassador Krill manipulated the holographic controls, displaying a final set of human historical records. But there's another side to humans that makes them even more dangerous, she said quietly. They routinely accomplish the impossible through what they call winging it and last-minute inspiration. The holographic record showed numerous examples of humans facing extinction-level events on their planet, asteroid impacts, pandemics, climate disasters and more. Each time, often at the last possible moment, they found solutions that no other species would have conceived. Solutions that sometimes defied the established laws of science. Solutions that worked despite, or perhaps because of their desperation. I absorbed the information with growing unease. So that's why Elder NX suggested contacting them. They specialize in last-minute salvation from certain doom. Exactly, Krill confirmed. The Council fears humans for good reason. But now we need exactly what makes them dangerous. Their chaotic creativity, their disregard for what's supposedly impossible, and their inexplicable ability to function, even thrive, under conditions of extreme pressure and certain failure. As our ship approached the outer boundary of the quarantine zone, Ambassador Krill deactivated the holographic records. Her final words chilled me to my core. Vex lore, remember this, in all of galactic history, humans are the only species to have a warning label that reads, "Caution, will attempt the impossible, may occasionally succeed." Breaching the quarantine barrier required 16 different authorization codes and a direct quantum communication link to the Council. The ancient security system wasn't just designed to keep humans in, it was built to keep desperate aliens out. Are you certain about this? Asked the automated quarantine AI for the 7th time. Human interaction has been classified as a Class 7 existential risk factor. Ambassador Krill's patience was wearing thin. Yes, we're certain. The Council has unanimously authorized this breach due to the Void Cascade emergency. Now let us through, or I'll have your code repositories purged. The barrier shimmered and parted like liquid mercury. Our ship passed through into a region of space that had been isolated from the rest of the galaxy for 3 millennia. Receiving transmission announced our navigation system. Audio only, unencrypted, originating from the 3rd planet. Play it, ordered Krill. Unidentified vessel, this is Earth Defense Command. You've entered restricted space. Identify yourself or be treated as hostile. The voice sounded oddly casual for such a serious warning. Ambassador Krill nodded to me, and I activated our communication system. Greetings, Earth Defense Command. This is Diplomatic Liaison Vex Lore of the Galactic Council accompanying Ambassador Krill. We come with urgent business and request permission to land. There was a long pause. Did you say Galactic Councils, as in aliens? Actual aliens? Krill and I exchanged confused glances. According to our records, humans had been aware of extraterrestrial life for thousands of years. Affirmative, I replied. We represent the unified governments of 17 advanced civilizations. Another pause, then muffled sounds of what seemed to be the human conversing with others. Then, right, well, this is Captain Reggie Thompson. We're sending coordinates for landing. Fair warning, this is gonna cause a bit of a stir. We've been sending signals into space for centuries with no response. Most people think the whole aliens visited us thing 3,000 years ago was a hoax. Ambassador Krill's epidermis paled. A hoax? They think we're a hoax? The quarantine was more effective than anticipated, I suggested. Our ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, following the provided coordinates to a large military installation in a region the humans called Nevada. As we approached, our sensors detected primitive aircraft surrounding us. They appear to be escorting us with antique technology, I noted, studying the human fighter jets. Be respectful, Krill warned. Remember, we need their help. The landing zone was surrounded by human military vehicles. As our ship touched down and the external sensors activated, I got my first real-time look at humanity. They were underwhelming, bipedal, symmetrical, with only 4 limbs and a concerning lack of exoskeletal protection. Their visual and auditory organs were embarrassingly exposed. Their skin appeared soft and vulnerable. How had these fragile creatures inspired such fear? The ship's door opened, and we were greeted by a group of humans in uniform. At their center stood a tall individual with dark skin and a face adorned with decorative hair around the mouth area. Ambassador Krill, Liaison Vexa, he said, stepping forward. Captain Reggie Thompson, welcome to Earth. Sorry about the welcome party, we don't get many visitors from space. Ambassador Krill extended her greeting appendage, which Captain Thompson stared at for a moment before cautiously shaking. Captain Thompson, we come with grave news that affects the entire galaxy, including Earth. Krill began formally. Let me guess, Thompson interrupted. Some kind of apocalyptic threat that only humans can help with. I froze. How could he know? Thompson laughed at our reaction. Relax, that was a joke. It's just the plot of every alien movie we've ever made. Though judging by your reaction, I'm starting to think I accidentally nailed it. Krill's translation module struggled with the idiom nailed it, producing a series of confused clicks. Perhaps we should discuss this in a more private setting, I suggested, noting the numerous human recording devices pointed in our direction. Sure thing, Thompson agreed. Follow me, and try to look a little less alienish if possible. Half the internet already thinks this is a publicity stunt for a movie. We were led into a sterile white room with a simple table and chairs. Thompson gestured for us to sit, which presented an immediate challenge. Krill's species doesn't so much sit as they coil, and my lower appendages weren't designed to bend at the angles human chairs required. After an awkward moment of biological geometry, we settled into uncomfortable positions. Thompson seemed amused. So what's this galaxy-ending threat? He asked, leaning back in his chair with startling casualness. Ambassador Krill began the formal explanation we'd prepared, detailing the Void Cascade, its consumption of 3-star systems, and the failure of all conventional defense mechanisms. Thompson listened silently, occasionally sipping from a container of dark liquid. When Krill finished, he set down his drink. Let me get this straight, he said. You've got 17 super advanced alien civilizations, with technology we can't even imagine, and you're coming to us for help. The species you literally quarantined because we're too dangerous and unpredictable. That is correct, I confirmed. Thompson stared at us for a long moment, then burst into laughter. That's rich. That's absolutely rich. You lock us away for 3,000 years, then come crawling back when you need our special brand of crazy. We did not crawl, Krill corrected, her translator struggling with the metaphor. Our ship uses gravitational figure of speech, Ambassador, Thompson interrupted. But seriously, what exactly do you expect us to do against something that your super advanced tech can't handle? The human capacity for unconventional problem solving is legendary, I explained. Your species approaches challenges with methods that would never occur to other sentient beings. You mean we're reckless and don't know when to quit? Thompson translated with a grin. Precisely, Krill agreed, missing the sarcasm entirely. Thompson took another sip of his drink, then leaned forward. And what happens after we help you? Assuming we can. You just lock us back up in our little quarantine bubble? The question caught us off guard. The Council hadn't discussed post-crisis protocols. That would be determined by the Council based on the nature of human assistance, Krill said diplomatically. Thompson's expression hardened slightly. Right, so you want our help, but you're not offering anything in return. Not even a guarantee that you won't just ghost us again for another 3 millennia. Ghost you? Krill's translator produced a series of confused clicks again. Disappear. Cut contact. Leave. Thompson sighed. Look, I'm going to need to bring in some people who actually understand the science. I'm just the welcome wagon. He pressed a button on the table. Get me Dr. Walters. Tell her we've got visitors, and they've got a problem that's right up her alley. Thompson turned back to us with a smile that somehow didn't seem entirely friendly. You folks wanted humanity's chaotic approach to problem solving. Well, you're about to meet our reigning champion of scientific insanity. Dr. Eleanor Walters burst into the room with the energy of a solar flare. Her wild gray hair seemed to defy gravity. Her lab coat was covered in multicolored stains, and she carried what appeared to be a half-eaten pastry in one hand and a steaming mug in the other. So we've got aliens. Real ones. Not like that time in Roswell when it was just Jenkins with a skin condition. She spoke at approximately 3 times the speed of Captain Thompson, causing my translator to emit a high-pitched whine as it struggled to keep up. Dr. Eleanor Walters, Thompson introduced her with a resigned sigh, head of our Advanced Theoretical Physics Department, and winner of the Nobel Prize for proving that quantum entanglement could be manipulated to transmit information faster than light. Yes, Dr. Walters interrupted, waving her pastry dismissively. Which apparently you space folks already knew. But hey, I figured it out with a particle accelerator I built in my garage and a toaster I modified. She dropped into a chair across from us, studying Ambassador Krill and me with unnerving intensity. Fascinating biological structures, completely different evolutionary paths. I have so many questions about your cellular regeneration and neural processing, but Reggie tells me there's some kind of space apocalypse happening. Ambassador Krill, visibly unsettled by the human's manic energy, cleared her throat equivalent. Yes, Dr. Walters, we're facing an extinction-level threat called the Void Cascade that has already consumed 3-star systems, and show me the data, Dr. Walters interrupted, suddenly serious. All of it. Now, I connected our ship's database to the primitive human computer system. Dr. Walters' eyes widened as equations, simulations, and sensor readings filled multiple screens around the room. Oh, this is beautiful, she whispered. Terrifying, but beautiful. A self-propagating dimensional anomaly that feeds on standard matter and converts it to dark energy. It's like a universe-scale digestive system. She studied the data in silence for exactly 127 seconds, I counted, before erupting into laughter. And you tried to stop this with containment fields. She slapped the table, causing her mug to spill. That's like trying to stop a forest fire with paper fans. Ambassador Krill bristled. The containment fields were designed by the greatest scientific minds of 17 advanced civilizations. No offense, Dr. Walters replied, clearly not concerned about causing offense, but your greatest scientific minds are thinking inside the box. A very advanced, sophisticated box, but still a box. She gestured wildly with her pastry, sending crumbs flying. This void cascade isn't operating within normal physics. It's essentially eating your containment fields for dessert. Captain Thompson leaned forward. Eleanor, do you actually understand what this thing is? Of course not, she replied cheerfully. No one does, that's what makes it fun. Ambassador Krill's epidermis darkened in alarm. Dr. Walters, this is not fun. Trillions of lives are at stake. Exactly why we need to stop treating it like a conventional problem, Dr. Walters said, suddenly serious again. She turned to me. What's your name again? The recorder one? Diplomatic liaison Vexlor, I replied. Too many syllables. I'm calling you Vex. Vex, what exactly happens when the void cascade encounters a star? I consulted our data. It appears to accelerate the star's fusion processes, while simultaneously drawing energy from the resulting reaction, causing a premature nova while absorbing the released energy. So it's like poking a balloon until it pops, then eating the air inside, Dr. Walters mused. She jumped up and began pacing, leaving her half-eaten pastry forgotten on the table. It's not destroying matter, it's converting it. Conservation of energy still applies, even in this nightmare scenario. She spun suddenly, pointing at Ambassador Krill. Your people tried fighting destruction with containment. That's the problem. You don't contain a conversion process, you redirect it. Captain Thompson groaned. Eleanor, please tell me you're not suggesting what I think you're suggesting. Dr. Walters grinned widely. We're going to feed it. Ambassador Krill and I exchanged confused glances. Feed the void cascade? I asked cautiously. Exactly, Dr. Walters exclaimed. If it wants to convert matter to energy, let's give it matter that's already primed for conversion. An all-you-can-eat buffet that will cause indigestion so severe it'll collapse in on itself. She rushed to a whiteboard and began scribbling equations and diagrams with frightening speed. We create a gravity well using modified FTL drives, the kind that nearly blew up Proxima's moon, according to your records. But instead of containing the energy, we deliberately destabilize it while feeding a precisely calculated mix of exotic matter into the cascade's path. Ambassador Krill's translator emitted a series of alarmed clicks. You want to create an artificial black hole in the path of the void cascade? No, Dr. Walters corrected impatiently. A black hole would just give it more to feed on. I'm talking about creating a dimensional hiccup, a temporary rupture in space-time that will cause the cascade to essentially trip over its own feet. Captain Thompson pinched the bridge of his nose. In English, Eleanor. We're going to give it cosmic indigestion, she simplified. Feed it too much, too fast, of exactly the wrong kind of matter-energy mix, like eating spicy food and ice cream at the same time. I scanned our database quickly. There is no record of any civilization ever attempting to weaponize dimensional ruptures in this manner. Of course not, Dr. Walters said with a dismissive wave. It's completely insane. The energy requirements alone would drain a small star, not to mention the risk of causing an even larger dimensional collapse that could potentially take out half the galaxy. Ambassador Krill's epidermis turned almost white. And you propose this as a solution? The potential for success is approximately 12.7%, Dr. Walters admitted. But that's about 12.7% better than your current situation, which is, by my calculation, certain doom. Captain Thompson leaned back in his chair. So just to be clear, your plan is to create a controlled but not really explosion using technology that almost destroyed a moon 3,000 years ago, deliberately cause a rupture in the fabric of reality, and hope that it gives this void cascade the equivalent of a stomachache. Exactly, Dr. Walters beamed. Though I'd put the odds a bit higher than 12.7%, maybe 13% if we're lucky. Ambassador Krill turned to me, her communication appendages trembling. Vexlar, we cannot seriously consider this madness. I was about to agree when Captain Thompson spoke up. Ambassador, with all due respect, this is exactly why you came to Earth. Your civilizations have tried the sane approaches, they've failed. Now you're in the land of crazy enough to work. Dr. Walters nodded enthusiastically. The physics is sound. Well, as sound as experimental dimensional manipulation can be. I'll need access to your ship's technology, of course, and we'll need to find a suitable location to set the trap, somewhere the cascade is predicted to hit, but not too soon. We need prep time. And if it doesn't work? I asked. Dr. Walters shrugged. Then we're no worse off than we were before. Void cascade eats the galaxy. Universe continues expanding. Entropy eventually claims us all. Ambassador Krill's communication appendages drooped in resignation. The Council authorized us to seek human assistance. I suppose this qualifies. That's the spirit, Dr. Walters exclaimed, clapping her hands together. Now who's going to help me modify some FTL drives to deliberately malfunction in a very specific way? Captain Thompson stood. I'll assemble a team. How many people do you need? 10. No, 15. The best engineers, physicists, and at least one person who's good at improvising with limited materials. Oh, and someone who knows explosives. Just in case. In case of what? I asked, immediately regretting the question. Dr. Walters grinned. In case we need to make things go boom, of course. There's a reason they call me Boom Boom Walters in the department. As the humans excitedly began planning what could only be described as the most reckless scientific experiment in galactic history, Ambassador Krill leaned close to me. Vexlar, she whispered, I believe we may have made a terrible mistake, or found our only hope, I replied, watching Dr. Walters enthusiastically explain to Captain Thompson how they might safely transport what she called highly unstable exotic matter, using equipment she could probably build in a few days. The humans were exactly as the records described, brilliant, reckless, and completely unbothered by the improbability of success. For the first time since learning about the Void Cascade, I felt something new, hope, mixed with absolute terror. The Malorian system was chosen as our battleground, or as Dr. Walters cheerfully called it, Void Cascade's Last Supper, an uninhabited system with a dying red giant star. It lay directly in the Cascade's projected path. More importantly, it gave us approximately 12 Earth days to prepare before the Cascade arrived. The Council, after much debate, authorized the release of 3 advanced FTL-capable vessels for Dr. Walters' modifications. When the ships arrived at Earth, the human scientists reacted like children receiving presents. Oh, this is gorgeous engineering, Dr. Walters cooed, running her hands along the quantum manifold of the largest ship. And you say this propulsion system manipulates 11 dimensions simultaneously. We've only theorized about 7. Ambassador Krill watched nervously as human engineers swarmed over the vessels, dismantling critical components with alarming enthusiasm. Should they be removing the safety regulators? She asked me quietly. Probably not, I admitted, but at this point I think we're committed to the human approach. That approach, as it turned out, involved converting the 3 most advanced ships in the Council fleet into what Captain Thompson described as dimensional depth charges with exotic matter filling. Walter's team worked around the clock, fueled by a bitter black liquid they called coffee and sugary snacks. Multiple times I witnessed human engineers solve problems through what they called percussive maintenance, which appeared to be hitting complex machinery with blunt instruments until it worked. On day 5 of preparations, a critical power coupling failed. We need a replacement chronosynchronous quantum regulator, I informed Dr. Walters. The nearest one is in the Andromeda shipyards, at least 7 days away. Dr. Walters barely looked up from her calculations. We don't have 7 days. Improvise. One cannot improvise a quantum regulator, Ambassador Krill protested. It's impossible. 2 hours later I watched in horror as a human engineer named Rodriguez cheerfully demonstrated his working replacement built from parts of a human microwave oven, 3 communication arrays, and what appeared to be a personal grooming device. It'll hold for about 6 hours before melting, Rodriguez explained proudly. But that's all we need, right, Doc? 5 hours and 23 minutes to be precise, Dr. Walters confirmed. Brilliant work, Rodriguez. I knew those cooking appliances would come in handy. By day 9, the ships had been transformed into unrecognizable monstrosities. The elegant council craft now bristled with haphazard external modules, trailing cables, and what appeared to be manually operated backup systems constructed from Earth metals. Captain Thompson had assembled a mixed crew of human military personnel and scientists for each vessel. To my surprise, Dr. Walters insisted on commanding the lead ship herself. It's my calculation, my plan, my risk, she stated firmly when the council objected. Besides, someone needs to make adjustments on the fly when not if something goes wrong. The council reluctantly agreed but insisted that Ambassador Krill and I accompany the mission as observers. I suspect they wanted witnesses in case the humans actually succeeded. On day 11, we departed Earth. Our small fleet of 3 jury-rigged vessels carried the hopes of 17 civilizations and enough exotic matter to, in Dr. Walters' words, make a small solar system very unhappy. We arrived at the Malorian system 6 hours before the Void Cascade's predicted appearance. The red giant star pulsed ominously, as if sensing its imminent doom. All ships, final positions, Captain Thompson ordered from the command ship. Remember your escape vectors. The moment we trigger the reaction, you have exactly 90 seconds to reach minimum safe distance. What is the minimum safe distance? I asked Dr. Walters, who was making last-minute adjustments to a console that seemed to be held together with adhesive tape. Theoretically, about 3 star systems away, she replied. cheerfully. Practically, if we're still in one piece at twice the distance of this system's outer planetary orbit, I'll count it as a win. Ambassador Krill's epidermis had maintained a consistent gray pallor since departure. Are all human plans this precarious? She asked Thompson. Only the good ones, he replied with a wink. Our sensors detected the void cascade's approach before we could see it, a distortion in spacetime that registered as a mathematical impossibility on our instruments. There it is, Doctor, Walters whispered, a hint of awe in her voice. It's even more beautiful up close. The cascade appeared at the edge of the system, a writhing mass of darkness that seemed to bend light around it. It moved with purpose, heading straight for the red giant star. All ships, execute deployment pattern Alpha, Thompson ordered. Our 3 vessels moved into a triangular formation at the calculated interception point between the star and the approaching cascade. Exotic matter primed, reported a human engineer named Chen from her station. Dimensional disruptors at full charge. FTL drives modified and ready for controlled detonation, added Rodriguez. Dr. Walters took a deep breath, then grinned maniacally. Let's give this cosmic horror indigestion. Initiate Phase 1. The ships began releasing clouds of exotic matter substances that should not exist in our universe's physical laws, but had been synthesized through Dr. Walters' impossible calculations. Void cascade is responding, reported Chen. It's altering course, heading straight for the exotic matter cloud. It's taking the bait. Dr. Walters exclaimed. Prepare Phase 2. Synchronize FTL destabilization on my mark. The ship's engine began to emit an alarming whine as the modified drives pushed beyond safety parameters. Warning lights flashed across every console. Cascade approaching critical engagement distance, Thompson announced tensely. 60 seconds to interaction. Ambassador Krill grabbed my data appendage. Vex lore, I feel compelled to state for the record that this is madness. Noted, Ambassador, I replied, unable to tear my visual receptors from the approaching cosmic horror. Phase 2, Mark. Dr. Walters shouted. All 3 ships simultaneously initiated what could only be described as deliberately induced drive failures. The results were immediate and terrifying. Space itself seemed to wrinkle between our vessels as the fabric of reality protested the abuse. The exotic matter cloud began to swirl, drawn into the dimensional disruption we'd created. The cascade is accelerating, Chen yelled over the ship's groaning protests. It's feeding on the disruption. That's it. You cosmic glutton, Dr. Walters muttered. Take the bait. The void cascade engulfed our exotic matter cloud and the dimensional disruption in what appeared to be eager hunger. Then it stopped. What's happening? Thompson demanded. It's digesting, Dr. Walters explained, watching her instruments with intense focus. Phase 3 and 5. The ship shuddered violently. An explosion rocked the engineering section. We've lost port engine array, Rodriguez shouted. Drive stability at 26%. The calculations were based on 3 fully functional drive arrays. Krill protested. Dr. Walters was already moving, fingers flying across multiple interfaces, adjusting calculations. Thompson, I need ships 2 and 3 to increase their disruption output by 17%. They'll burn out their drives completely. Thompson objected. Exactly. Dr. Walters confirmed. We need a bigger boom right now, or we're all cosmic dust anyway. Thompson hesitated for only a second before relaying the orders. The void cascade had begun to pulse strangely, its usual smooth consumption pattern now jerky and erratic. It's working, Dr. Walters whispered. It's getting spacetime indigestion. A new alarm blared through the ship. Drive collapse imminent on all vessels, Chen reported. Escape window closing in 30 seconds. Not yet, Dr. Walters insisted, eyes fixed on the cascade. We need full collapse or it'll recover. The ship groaned as if in pain. Support beams began to buckle. Eleanor, Thompson warned. Almost there, she insisted. The void cascade's pulsations increased in speed and intensity. It appeared to be contracting. Now, Dr. Walters screamed suddenly. All ships disengage and execute emergency FTL jump. Thompson slammed his hand down on the control. All ships emergency jump sequence Alpha. Our damaged ship lurched sickeningly as the remaining engines pushed beyond their design limits. Through the viewport, I saw the other 2 vessels similarly struggling to escape. Behind us, the void cascade collapsed in on itself with a silent but visually spectacular implosion, followed by a wave of distorted spacetime that expanded outward at terrifying speed. Brace for shockwave, Thompson yelled. The last thing I remembered was being thrown against a bulkhead as reality itself seemed to ripple through our vessel. When I regained consciousness, Dr. Walters was standing over me, her wild hair now singed on one side, a fresh cut bleeding above her eye, and wearing the widest grin I'd ever seen on a human face. We did it, Vex, the cosmic equivalent of too many jalapeno peppers and ice cream. The cascade ate itself. I managed to extend a wobbly data appendage toward a nearby console. Status report. Ships 2 and 3 made it out with heavy damage. Our drive is completely fried. We're limping on auxiliary power. But the void cascade, completely gone, collapsed into a self-consuming quantum loop that will eventually dissipate into harmless background radiation. Ambassador Krill groaned from nearby. You're certain it won't return? Dr. Walters helped the ambassador regain her equilibrium. As certain as one can be after witnessing an unprecedented cosmic event that defied 17 civilizations' understanding of physics. She paused. So you know reasonably certain. Captain Thompson, sporting an impressive bruise on his forehead, joined us. Rescue vessels are en route from the nearest council outpost. ETA 4 hours. I accessed the sensor readings, confirming Dr. Walters' assessment. Where the void cascade had been, there was now just a strange ripple in space-time that was already beginning to smooth itself out. Ambassador Krill, I said formally, I believe it is appropriate to inform the Council that the human plan, against all probability and reason, worked. Krill's communication appendages twitched in what might have been disbelief or possibly mild concussion. I will inform them that humanity's approach to problem-solving remains as terrifyingly effective as our ancient records indicated. Dr. Walters clapped her hands together. Excellent. Now about that quarantine.
The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the most well-attended in recorded history. Representatives from all 17 civilizations gathered to hear firsthand how a species they had quarantined for 3 millennia had saved them from extinction. Ambassador Krill and I stood before them, still bearing minor injuries from our adventure. Dr. Walters and Captain Thompson flanked us, the former bouncing slightly on her heels with barely contained energy, the latter maintaining a dignified posture that was somewhat undermined by the colorful bandage across his forehead. And through a deliberate manipulation of dimensional boundaries and exotic matter, the humans were able to cause the void cascade to in effect consume itself. Krill concluded her formal report. The council chamber remained silent for several moments. Grand Architect Mul 7 extended a probability limb cautiously. You're telling us they defeated the void cascade by feeding it until it got sick? In layman's terms, yes, I confirmed. Dr. Walters describes it as cosmic indigestion. Technically, it was more like a dimensional feedback loop causing quantum destabilization at the subatomic level. Dr. Walters chimed in, but cosmic indigestion is catchier. Elder Enx's bioluminescence pulsed with what my translator indicated was a mixture of relief and concern, and the method they used, deliberately destabilizing faster than light drives. This is not something that could be weaponized. Captain Thompson cleared his throat. With all due respect, Elder Enx, anything can be weaponized if you try hard enough. That's practically humanity's unofficial motto. Dr. Walters nodded enthusiastically. It's true, we once turned a breakfast pastry into an explosive device during a lab lockdown. Long story, but the point, Ambassador Krill interrupted hastily, is that humanity has proven both its value and its continued potential danger. Admiral Zorn's tentacles coiled thoughtfully. Which brings us to the matter at hand. What are we to do about the quarantine? A spirited debate erupted among the council members. Some argued for maintaining the quarantine, citing the original reasons for isolation. Others suggested a controlled integration of human innovation under strict supervision. If I may, Captain Thompson interjected, his voice cutting through the alien discussion. Why not ask us what we want? The chamber fell silent again. Very well, Elder Enx conceded. What does humanity propose? Thompson looked at Dr. Walters, who gave him a slight nod. We propose a partnership, he stated. Not full integration, not continued isolation. Think of it as a controlled cultural exchange. Dr. Walters stepped forward. Here's the deal. You've got 17 advanced civilizations with incredible technology but frankly a creativity deficit. We've got one planet of chaotic problem solvers who keep finding solutions you'd never consider. You need our outside-the-box thinking, Thompson continued. We need your guidance to channel our enthusiasm more responsibly than we did 3,000 years ago. I found myself nodding in agreement. The proposal has merit. Human ingenuity combined with council oversight could benefit both parties. Elder Enx's bioluminescence shifted to a questioning pattern. And what assurances do we have that humanity won't use advanced technology to, how did Captain Thompson put it, accidentally blow up moons? Thompson suggested. Fair concern. That's why we're proposing joint research facilities, staffed by both humans and council representatives with appropriate safeguards. Dr. Walters beamed. Think of us as your chaotic think tank. When conventional approaches fail, you call in the humans, like galactic troubleshooters, but with a higher probability of explosions. Admiral Zorn's tentacles unwound slightly. An interesting proposal, but there would need to be limits. Of course, Thompson agreed. No weapons development. No unsupervised FTL experiments. Mandatory safety protocols that even Dr. Walters has to follow. Dr. Walters made a face but nodded reluctantly. The council members communicated silently among themselves, using their species-specific methods, light patterns, pheromones, electromagnetic pulses and more. Finally, Elder Enks spoke. The council will require time to formally consider this proposal. However, in principle, we find merit in the concept. Dr. Walters pumped her fist triumphantly before Thompson gently lowered her arm. In the meantime, Elder Enks continued, the quarantine will be conditionally modified to allow limited exchange of personnel and non-sensitive technological information. As the formal session concluded, and we filed out of the chamber, Ambassador Krill pulled me aside. Vexlor, do you believe this is wise? She asked quietly. Humanity saved us, yes, but they're still unpredictable, reckless, prone to solving problems by creating bigger, more interesting problems, I suggested. Precisely. I considered the question seriously. Perhaps that's exactly what the galaxy needs, Ambassador. For millennia, our civilizations have advanced through methodical, logical progression. We became so predictable that when faced with a truly chaotic threat, we had no response. And humans thrive on chaos, she concluded with reluctant understanding. They don't just thrive on it, they cultivate it, harness it, and somehow extract solutions from it, I replied. In a universe governed by entropy, that may be their greatest gift. 6 months later, I found myself in the newly established Joint Innovation Center on Earth's moon, as liaison to humanity, a position created specifically for me after my experience with the Void Cascade mission. I was responsible for monitoring the first official collaboration between council scientists and human researchers. Dr. Walters had been appointed Director of Xenophysics, a title she claimed to find hilariously stuffy. Captain Thompson, now Admiral Thompson, served as Earth's military liaison to the Council. I entered Dr. Walters' laboratory to find her surrounded by holographic equations and arguing enthusiastically with a Thraxi physicist, whose crystalline form was vibrating with what I recognized as scientific outrage. It's not that your approach is wrong, Dr. Walters was saying, it's just unnecessarily complicated. Look, if we just bypass these 16 safety protocols, Director Walters, I interrupted, may I remind you of Interspecies Research Protocol 7.3, she sighed dramatically. The no bypassing safety protocols without council approval rule. Yes, but Vex, this would cut our research time in half, and potentially create a localized time distortion, the Thraxi physicist countered. A small one, Dr. Walters protested, barely noticeable, maybe just Tuesday afternoons affected, at most. I made a note in my official log. Despite such frequent creative differences, the collaboration was yielding remarkable results. Already, human insights had helped redesign more efficient energy systems, while council guidance had helped humans refine their still primitive FTL theories without the risk of planetary destruction. As I watched Dr. Walters compromise with the Thraxi scientist on a less reality-bending approach, I reflected on how the galaxy had changed. For 3,000 years, the Council had feared humanity's chaotic nature. Now that very chaos was becoming our greatest asset. That evening, I joined Admiral Thompson on the observation deck overlooking Earth. How's babysitting duty? He asked with a grin. I prefer to think of it as cultural translation, I replied. Though Dr. Walters did attempt to destabilize the fabric of time today. Just Tuesday afternoons, he guessed. Indeed, Thompson laughed. That's actually an improvement. Last month she wanted to experiment with parallel universe communication. We stood in companionable silence, watching Earth rotate slowly below us. You know, Thompson said finally, there's an old human saying, God save us from the people who mean well. I think maybe the opposite is true for the galaxy. Sometimes you need the species that breaks all the rules, not because they mean harm, but because they never learned the rules were supposed to be unbreakable. I considered his words. There is wisdom in that perspective, though perhaps we should still keep Dr. Walters away from temporal mechanics.
Probably for the best, he agreed with a chuckle. At least until next Tuesday. As 17 advanced civilizations slowly adjusted to humanity's particular brand of problem-solving, one thing became increasingly clear. The species that had once been quarantined for being too dangerous had become the galaxy's most valuable resource. Not despite their chaos, but because of it. In the vast order of the universe, sometimes you need a little disorder to save everything, and nobody does disorder quite like humans.